Have you ever wondered what happens when the entire global financial system decides to aim all its firepower at one single company? Well, we're about to see it in action. Let's dive into the incredible story of how OpenAI just pulled off one of the biggest, most mind-boggling private funding rounds in tech history. So, on August 1st, 2025, OpenAI closed a deal that is honestly hard to even wrap your head around. They raised an absolutely staggering $8.3 billion in fresh capital. Just to put that into perspective for you, that's more money than the entire annual economic output of dozens of countries. And the valuation that came with it? A cool $300 billion. I mean, that instantly makes OpenAI one of the most valuable private companies on the entire planet, putting it right up there with household name giants. So the real question is, how on earth did they pull this off? All right, let's break this down. How exactly did a deal this massive actually come together? Well, for starters, the investor demand was just completely off the charts. The deal was 5 times oversubscribed. That means for every dollar they wanted to raise, investors were lining up to offer 5. We're talking nearly $40 billion in potential investment. With that kind of feeding frenzy, OpenAI could basically pick and choose its partners, and they got the whole thing done months ahead of schedule. So who were the chosen ones? The lead investor was Dragoneer Investment Group, and they wrote a massive check for $2.8 billion. But you've also got these titans of the financial world, right? Blackstone, TPG, T. Rowe Price. And this was completely intentional. OpenAI made a strategic choice here to prioritize these huge new institutions, the ones with seriously deep pockets, over just taking more money from their early VC backers. They're playing the long game. Which, brings us to the big question. What on earth is going on behind the scenes that's driving this insane level of investor confidence? Let's take a look under the hood at the engine that's powering this money machine. At the end of the day, it really comes down to one thing: absolutely explosive growth. I mean, look at this. In just the first 7 months of 2025, OpenAI's annualized revenue more than doubled. It skyrocketed from around $6 billion to over $13 billion. That's not just growth, that's the kind of exponential, almost vertical expansion that investors basically fall over themselves for. And what's fueling all that revenue? A user base that is just enormous. The company is now serving over 5 million paying business customers. And on the consumer side, a staggering 700 million people are using its products every single week. That scale, that adoption, that's the bedrock for everything else. But here's the wild part of the story. To get that kind of growth, OpenAI is spending money at a rate that is just as breathtaking. The company's projected cash burn for 2025 alone is a colossal $8 billion. So where is all that cash going? Well, think about this. Just keeping ChatGPT up and running costs about $700,000 a day. The rest is this massive bet on the future. Billions are being poured into computing power, into R&D, and into hiring the best talent. This includes gigantic projects like brand new data center in Norway that's going to house 100,000 of the latest NVIDIA GPUs. And then there's this global expansion program they're calling Stargate. You don't spend that kind of money unless you're planning for world domination. And of course, you have to remember, OpenAI isn't doing any of this in a vacuum. This historic funding round, it's really just the latest move in what has become a full-blown, escalating AI arms race. I mean, just look at the competition. Anthropic, OpenAI's main rival, is out there trying to raise up to $5 billion at a proposed $170 billion valuation. Elon Musk's xAI just raised $10 billion and is already sniffing around for more. And that's not even counting the untold billions being spent internally by giants like Google and Meta. In this game, everybody is building a war chest. So what are all these incredibly smart, incredibly rich people betting on? It's the next big thing. The project that underpins all of this hype and the thing that's supposed to justify that massive valuation. We are, of course, talking about GPT-5. And if you want to understand why there's so much excitement, you just have to listen to this quote from the CEO, Sam Altman. He was talking about testing this next-gen model, and he said it answered questions that he, the guy running the place, could not answer. He called it a here it is moment. That tells you this isn't just a small step up. They believe they have a major leap forward on their hands. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. Nobody's sure when it's actually coming. The bull case, the optimistic view, is fueled by reports that Microsoft is already getting its servers ready for a launch as early as August 2025. But the bear case, the more cautious side, is warning that all the development and safety testing could easily push that release all the way into mid to late 2026. And that timeline, that's the big gamble for every single investor. And all of this leads us to one final massive challenge. With all this money comes immense pressure. OpenAI is now walking this tightrope, trying to balance its original mission and safety commitments with the cold, hard demands of its new financial partners. You can see this tension playing out in their corporate structure. First, back in late 2024, they were thinking about converting to a public benefit corporation to make it easier to raise capital. Then, just a few months later, they reversed course. The board decided, no, the original nonprofit parent has to keep control. But the pressure is still on. A huge follow-on investment from SoftBank is reportedly hanging in the balance, conditional on them getting this structure finalized. It's a real tug-of-war between mission and money. So it all boils down to this. OpenAI now has a $300 billion valuation and a war chest to match, all to keep fighting an AI arms race that's getting faster and more expensive by the day. And that leaves us with one final, and I think really important question to think about. As this kind of astronomical capital pours into this technology, who does it ultimately end up serving? The investors who are chasing a return, or the humanity this was all supposed to benefit in the first place?